Third down and 20.
We're going to talk about the repricing the obvious winners and losers. And we just talked about one of those teams, Atlanta. We've got Mike Davis. I think everyone thought Atlanta was drafting a running back at some point. Devante Williams was definitely a potential one that I thought a lot of people saw going there. Even Michael Carter I could have seen going there, but no, they just are like, we're okay. We'll sign one undrafted, but it seems like it's Mike Davis's spot to lose. So are you guys going out and buying Mike Davis? What's the price of Mike Davis?
Dude, I have no fucking idea.
I think I put in the chat yesterday. I'd probably have him around a mid-second, and I think it only makes sense for a contender to buy him, where you're like, damn, I could just one more RB2 would do my team wonders in terms of a championship push. I don't see anyone else. If I'm not a contender, I'm selling him right now. Like before they even maybe add anyone in camp. Add one of just like the remaining free agent running backs. I'd be looking to sell him right now for kind of just any second.
The thing is, though, is like when you think about it, like think about every single scenario your team could be in. Are you ever paying $206 for him?
Probably not.
If you're maybe not 206, but I could see like I don't need running backs, but if I really needed one running back for this season, especially if like week 1 or something, one of my guys got hurt, would I send over like a 207, 208 for Mike Davis?
Yeah, I think 208, 209 is around his value. Yeah. I would say 208 is like or maybe 207, like you said, where kind of like when you're in that second pickings of the receivers and probably where Sermon and Michael Carter are gone, I think that's where you have Mike Davis around. My fear for Mike Davis is that this really feels like the Falcons are going to bring in another vet like a Gurley or a Le'Veon Bell or whoever.
That's has like if you have him and you're not a contender, you should sell him right now.
Yeah, so that's my fear. What were you going to say, JT?
I was just thinking, so draft-wise running backs, like I probably had, if you put Mike Davis in this class and I was comparing him, I have him above Ramondre Stevenson, but under like Trey Sermon and Michael Carter. So he probably is worth around like that 206 range. I don't know if you could get really people to pay that, but if I had Mike Davis and you can guarantee me Diami Brown, I'm smashing that deal. Like seeing Mike Davis, like that's like pick 210, pick 211, 212. So I'd much rather do that. Moving on though to the other running back, who was a big winner. That's Myles Gaskin. Another team, the Dolphins, they got jumped. We thought they were going to get we thought Javonte Williams was going to end up there. Nope, the Broncos jumped them and took Javonte Williams. So Myles Gaskin, another player who didn't really get any running backs added to the team. Same deal as Mike Davis?
No, I think I value Gaskin a little bit higher.
Oh.
I don't love it, but I think that this is the guy I think that if I really needed a running back that I would be willing to spend like a 205 on. Like if I'm sitting there at 205 and I desperately needed a running back and I'm choosing between Davis and Gaskin, man, I really hate both of them. Like paying 205 for him, but I think I would choose Gaskin if like Sermon and Carter both went in my rookie draft before 205 and I had a 205.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's kind of the same thing where Gaskin I'd probably have over – this might be a hot take, but I'd have Gaskin over Michael Carter but below Trey Sermon.
That's completely fair. I think the one thing with Gaskin that I respect is that if the Dolphins bring in a running back, I still think Gaskin has an outside shot of being relevant. Whereas Mike Davis, it's like you, God forbid, an undrafted free agent or they bring in a vet. It's like I feel like that kills him.
Yeah, well, there is J.B. Hawkins there now. The thing about them too, though, is like Myles Gaskin's still on the same team. Like Mike Davis is going to a completely new team. We don't know how he's actually gonna fit there. Like Miles Gaskin, we saw what he was able to do.
The argument I will bring up Mike Davis in the Mike Davis versus Miles Gaskin, and I think I do value Miles Gaskin a little bit more because I think Frank's right. He could still have a third down running back role. Mike Davis, that offense is going to be scoring a ton with Calvin Ridley, Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Kyle Pitts. Even if they trade Julio, I still think it's going to be a high scoring offense. There's going to be a ton of like goal line touchdowns for Mike Davis. Like I would, if he's the starter for the year, I'd say he gets double-digit touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, it took touchdowns to keep Todd Gurley relevant last year. So
Frank, you look shocked.
It's just weird to hear Falcons and touchdowns in the same sentence. Like, I feel like you don't know what the fuck you're gonna get out of the Falcons. You can see the best offense of all time, or you can see a team that can't get a first down.
I promise you, you're struggling in the red zone. Just find where Kyle Pitts is on the field and just throw it up.
Yeah. That's my thing. Is that I'm not giving the ball to Mike Davis. I'm giving it to Kyle Pitts.
He might get tackled at the 1. Maybe he gets out of bounds at the 1-yard line.
All right, completely different end of the spectrum though. We have my guy, the one that Frank is not on, Deandre Swift. I think he was a big winner because they took Jamar Jefferson in the 7th, but it's 7th round running back. They got Penei Sewell at pick 7, and to be honest, I did not expect Sewell to be there at 7. Again, the top tackle at pick 7. To bolster a line. I think he's a solid winner from this draft. One that's probably not getting talked about a whole lot. What do you guys think?
I definitely do think it helps him. The fact that they didn't bring another back. With him, it's going to be interesting to see how the split is between him and Jamal Williams. Even though I obviously expect Swift to be like the main guy, I think he's going to be a top 15 running back production-wise next year. I want to see what that split does look like because depending on that could decide where in that top 15 he is. But I do agree. They didn't bring in anyone else. It's not like they're bringing in a whole ton of receivers to help the passing game a ton. So, I like that for Amon-Ra St. Brown. I see he's like starting to creep into like the mid-second round in some rookie drafts. So I'd agree. Swift is a winner. Just because Sewell being there at what they pick 6, 7? No, 7. Yeah, 7. Getting him at 7 is crazy. He's normally a top 3 pick in most drafts, and they addressed both their offensive and defensive line a lot throughout the draft. So I'd agree. I like that for Swift, and they're not like they added a ton of receivers. So I think he's going to get a ton of catches too, which I think is going to be kind of like a big chunk of his fantasy production is going to be in the receiving game.
All right.
Frank, you on the Swift as a winner bandwagon?
If you're expecting me to say that Swift is a winner,
I was
probably
not.
look somewhere else.
I was not. Hate has no home here, Frank, in this Deandre Swift house.
Hey, you're the king of hate. You're the biggest hater on this.
I just said in the Deandre Swift house.
Oh, in the Deandre Swift house. Okay.
In the Kadarius Toney house, that's where hate lives.
It's a mansion. It's a mansion.
Moving on.
It's a mansion.
So we kind of just lumped this all together, but teams with new quarterbacks. We have the Jaguars obviously getting Trey Lawrence as was expected. Zach Wilson to the Jets also expected. Trey Lance going to the 49ers. I think that's kind of where the big boost really start to see, because I don't think Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel owners would have necessarily loved getting Mac Jones as their quarterback, but now you have Trey Lance as your quarterback. While a more raw quarterback, definitely someone that could unlock a new portion of this offense, I feel like. Also, you've got Justin Fields going to the Bears, a team that I don't think most people thought would be able to reach up and get Justin Fields, but they did. And then you've got Mac Jones to the Patriots, and no one ever knows what the Patriots are going to do in the draft, but actually getting a quarterback is in the first round is something we have not seen. So just breaking it down, who do you guys think get the biggest boost? I'd have to imagine the Jaguars. Yeah, I have to imagine the Jaguars guys already kind of got their boost like as soon as you knew the Jags were the first pick.
Yeah, I was gonna say the Bears guys. This is gonna be the best quarterback they've had in 3 years. especially for Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney. And Darnell Mooney's going to be tied now. I don't know what happens with Allen Robinson after this season. I think there's a chance if Fields plays well that he's like, I want to stay here with this rookie quarterback. But definitely for Mooney, he's going to be with Fields now for a couple years and be able to develop a chemistry where if Allen Robinson leaves, he'll already have that chemistry with Fields, and Mooney can step into that wide receiver 1 spot with him. So I like Fields the most in terms of just benefiting the other fantasy players around him.
How about you, Frank?
I actually do like that one for Mooney, especially. I think Allen Robinson, it really doesn't do much. But with Mooney, I think the big difference you're going to get is that Justin Fields has a deadly accurate deep ball. As long as they can protect Justin Fields, he should be able to get that hookup way more consistent with Mooney than you saw with Nick Foles or the MVP Mitchell Trubisky. I think the big one for me, though, is the Patriots guys, because what we saw from Cam Newton last year, he would have wide open players 15, 20 yards down the field, and you'd see balls end up in the dirt. I also think that they're almost just a winner now that COVID shouldn't be as much of a thing, because I actually do think that Cam Newton was heavily impacted by COVID. So, regardless, the Patriots receivers, it really feels like either I'm going to get Mac Jones, who, from what I saw on tape, is pretty accurate, or I'm going to get a good Cam Newton, which is completely fine as well. So I think that you kind of have the chance for one of those two. So I like it a lot more for the Patriots receivers.
I'm very intrigued about the Patriots tight ends. I don't know what to. I can't make any sense of them because you went from no tight I can't even tell you who the top one was.
They didn't really draft the big receivers. Do you like Trey Nixon?
He's okay. He's just a late round pick. I don't think he'll ever really amount to much. The undrafted guys ended up. Yeah. Shut up. I hate you.
That word for word.
The undrafted guys, I can't get over you, Lounis. The undrafted guys on the Patriots tend to do well, better than the late round guys. But going back to the tight ends, we went from Devin Asiasi and I don't know, Dalton Keene and Izzo being your tight end group to now you have Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. And we have Cam Newton, who did have a rapport with Greg Olsen. So Greg Olsen was fantasy relevant with Cam. Cam's a completely he doesn't throw the ball nearly as much. So are those guys going to be relevant with Cam? Then Mac Jones is coming in. We didn't really see a whole lot of Mac Jones throwing at the tight end either. Is he going to in the NFL? Who knows? These are two guys that are complete wild cards to me, and I think they have a chance to either really gain or really lose a lot of dynasty value from this season.
Dude, I don't know what to think for the Patriots tight ends either. It's just a crapshoot.
I mean, to be fair for Mac Jones in terms of just throwing times, it's not like he had an elite one at Bama. He wasn't there when OJ Howard was there, and their offensive scheme, because they were just always stacked at receiver. They didn't need to. But I do agree. Though actually they might get into the 200 passing yards per game this year. But
it's a low bar to set.
I mean, did they have it last year?
Average, I think so.
Per game.
There was a couple of under 100-yard games, so
yeah,
it's close.
So no, I do agree. That's going to be a big boost. And Cam, now fully recovered from COVID, because I do think that had an effect. We've seen it also in the NBA this year too. How much I don't think we realized during the NFL season how much it would have an effect on athletes until we've also seen it now with kind of the NBA. Also, we see Jason Tatum. He's a 22-year-old star. 2 months after catching COVID, he still has to use an inhaler throughout the games now, which he never did before. So
there's Raquel Armstead was knocked out the whole year.
The entire year, yeah. So I feel when it was still new, we didn't know how much of it, even though we expected them when they were back, oh, okay, they're back, they're fine. It's still a lasting impact. So I think Cam's going to be better next year also.
Yeah. Toss up to me. I don't know what to expect. All right, last winner. This is someone that Lounis threw on our list. We've got Jalen Hurts as the winner. Lounis, you want to explain to us why Jalen Hurts is your draft winner?
So the Eagles did what, coming into the draft, I've been saying, like, even though they may like him, I don't know if they like Hurts enough to be able to pass on Fields at 12. And that's exactly what they did. Well, I mean, not that they passed on Fields at 12, but they were at 10 and they could have taken Fields if they wanted to. But they decided not to. They decided to get him a number one receiver, and they didn't draft a quarterback at any point. They just in the first 2 rounds, they got him a number one receiver and a Landon Dickerson, who is one of the best interior linemen in this draft. So I just think it's a big win for him. He's going to have the opportunity to do anything. I mean, to be like the full-time starter this year without worrying. And now I do think he does have to prove something this year, because the Eagles are in a position where they could have 3 first-round picks next year, where it's like, hey, if Jalen Hurts doesn't do well, we can go and either trade for whichever quarterback is asking out, or we can move up in the draft for one of the top QBs next year. But I think from right now, based off that last draft, passing on Justin Fields, I thought was like a big deal. And then just going and getting him a number one receiver, I would consider him a winner from this draft.
You know how I feel about Devante Smith.
Well, yeah, I know you don't, but it's like what they did do, like in terms of just position, passing on Fields. I was surprised that they did. I was like, damn, I know they weren't aiming for a QB, but it came down to it. It's hard to pass on Justin Fields.
I feel like Jalen Hurts is more of like an off-season winner than just a draft winner. Like if you were a Justin Fields owner in the beginning of the offseason, especially with all the Carson Wentz drama, you were very skeptical. You had no idea what to think. And now look how far you've come. And you've gotten to the point where the Eagles spend their top 2 draft picks on 2 great, at least in my opinion, maybe not JT's, but 2 first-round, really good, I think top 20, the both of them, offensive talents in the draft. I think it's great for Jalen Hurts. So, yeah, I like this as a draft winner. It's just now he's got to play well, right? It's still a risk. But you've at least given him a platform much better than what you had last year.
Yeah, I'm worried about Jalen Hurts, guys. I'm gonna say I just think we're putting a lot of stock into a few games where he only had one really good game against the Cardinals. Like his game against the Saints, it just seemed like they didn't even prepare for him. They didn't expect anything from him, and I don't know. I'm worried about Jalen Hurts. That's all.
I am a little bit as well. I just want to see development. But one thing that has to be said is that his legs were a huge threat, and teams, not that they necessarily didn't see that, but when they tried to rush extra guys than the Eagles had blocking, Jalen Hurts was much more efficient at getting the ball out of his hands and picking the right matchup. And when they only rushed 4 or 5, and even when you would get pressure on a good matchup, Jalen Hurts was able to evade it way better and way more comfortably than Carson Wentz, which just gave him a huge edge.
Yeah, and I think just the general situation around the Eagles offense last year was toxic. The entire offensive line was like musical chairs. It was just like plugging in guys. No one knew what the fuck they were doing. Missing blocks.
Oh my God, it was terrible. Yeah, and the running backs were terrible too.
The running backs couldn't pick up blitz protections, especially, Miles Sanders can, but he was injured for a decent portion of last year. You had receivers running into each other. You had Zach Ertz. I don't know what happened to him. I really don't know what happened.
Surprised he didn't get traded.
Same.
Surprised he was not traded.
Apparently, the asking price was too high. I still would not be surprised if he's traded by and before the season starts for a pick next year.
Where do you think he goes? Jacksonville, maybe. I thought Jacksonville was going to end up with a tight end. I don't think they did. And
I could see Jacksonville for maybe a 4th next year or a 5th
maybe
next year.
Good pickup for Jackson. I think Jacksonville's a lot closer than people are giving them credit for right now. It's just mainly because they're in a weak division, but that's a different story. Actually, we're going to talk about a guy from Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Let's just move on.
Yeah. So we kind of covered him already, but I think you and I, Frank, are kind of on the same page with him. James Robinson, we're talking biggest losers now. We switch topics. Biggest losers from the draft. James Robinson's obviously probably the guy at the top of the list, right? He was an undrafted free agent who went off. He was a top 5 running back fantasy wise. Then all of a sudden the Jags draft Travis Etienne in the first round, and so his value just tanks. But I think Frank and I are on the same page where I don't think this is as bad for James Robinson as people think.
Yeah, well, the big issue with it is that James Robinson is just not going to get that huge volume workload, so it does cap its upside. But in terms of being someone that can be an RB2 or a good flex player, yeah, me and JT completely agree that you shouldn't be panicking if you're a James Robinson owner. Yeah, I think we all knew, and it was priced in, that he was not a true stable RB1, right? But when you look at his value, he was valued at RB17. So it's not like even if you traded for James Robinson, if you were at least a somewhat savvy owner, you weren't paying an RB1 price. Most of the time you picked him up off waivers and were like, well, I'm never going to get the value for what he adds to my team. So if you have him as like your third running back or your fourth running back that he just kind of put you over the edge, I'm not panic selling him or saying, oh my God, he's freaking done. The guy's dead. Like, it definitely his upside is capped and he's going to be a lot more volatile. But I still think that there is a realistic shot with the offense that Bevel and Urban Meyer are going to run in Jacksonville that he's a solid RB2.
Yeah, I have like I'm gonna try and say this. Like I think I'd still rather have him than Michael Carter, which is like another probably hot take. Michael Carter is going like 2-1, 2-2, 2-3. I get that he's probably got the easier path to carries because there's no one there. Like Ty Johnson might be the starting running back for them right now. But James Robinson, we've already seen it from him, albeit he had to have like one more, kind of be near the top of the league in carries. But James Robinson showed that he could be a very, very good running back when he was given the ball on a team that didn't have a lot of offense going for them. So, which is rare. It's rare to see bad teams have good fantasy running backs. So I just can't knock him down that low. I mean, I'd still take Najee Harris over James Robinson. But after those 3 running backs, like Trey Sermon,
I'd rather own Trey Sermon.
That's a toss-up for me. I have Trey Sermon ranked above Michael Carter. I don't think that's consensus currently. That's where it gets to be a toss-up. But like, if I'm a James Robinson owner, I'm not giving up anything. I'm not giving him up for anything less than a late first, early second. And I don't think you're getting that price, especially after what just happened.
Well, JT, you're right though. In terms of comparing him to Trey Sermon, you're not buying Trey Sermon over James Robinson because you think that. At least I don't think you should be buying Trey Sermon because you think his situation for a boatload of carries is better. I think you're buying Trey Sermon just because you think he's a better prospect. I think that's the fair valuation. If you're buying Trey Sermon in the early second round because you think that Trey Sermon's going to be the next Hall of Fame running back for the 49ers, I think that's stupid. This is a coach and a system that chews up and spits out running backs. They play the hot hand. And this is a guy that while he has like the Trey Sermon and James Robinson, you're praying for the same situation to happen. And I think it's equally as likely, and maybe probably more likely with James Robinson because there's not 18,000 running backs on the team. You're praying for them to be in a committee back where there's 2 guys that are the main fantasy running backs, and you are the beneficiary of one of them. And people completely underrate how valuable someone like a Tevin Coleman was back in the day, where he was, he didn't have the upside of being able to score 25 points. But in your flex spot, he was a consistent 10 to 13 to 14 points, somewhere between 9 to 14 points every week. What better flex player is there? Yeah, he's not the RB1 anymore, but that still doesn't mean for an early second round pick, he can't be a phenomenal pickup because you could easily get James Robinson in a ton of leagues for that price right now.
But here's the thing for that. Here's the thing for that price, you can probably get with the actual draft pick Trey Sermon. Are you saying you're taking Robinson over Sermon?
I'm saying that it should be a lot closer than people are acting right now. Dude, you could probably – this is definitely league dependent, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could pick up James Robinson for a mid-second right now. Dude, I'm seeing like Chuba Hubbard go in the late and mid-second in some drafts. Like, that's freaking ridiculous. Come on. I'd much rather have James Robinson than Hubbard right now.
Real quick, rapid fire. I'm looking at keep trade cut. Would you rather have Chase Edmonds or James Robinson?
James Robinson.
That's what.
And I'm someone who's higher. And I'm someone who's higher on Chase Edmonds than a lot of people. It's still James Robinson.
They're ranked right next to each other on keep trade cut, which is insane to me. You know what? That already proved my point. I don't need to beat this over the head. Like he's worth more than Chase Edmonds. All right, moving on. Another one that I think me and Lounis are on the same page. I'm not sure if Frank is. The Bengals wide receivers, T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, are probably considered big losers because the Bengals went and drafted Jamar Chase. I don't like. Maybe Tyler Boyd is going to be a loser. I'm still buying T. Higgins.
I completely agree. I actually think now is a good time to buy T. Higgins, with people panicking about Chase. I agree Tyler Boyd is going to take a hit, but there's still targets to go around. I think Joe Burrow, it's a shame he didn't get to finish his rookie season. He's going to be someone who, in this league when healthy, passes for a shit ton of yards every year. I feel like people, just because he got hurt, Herbert was kind of like the star. People forgot how good Joe Burrow is. Joe Burrow can support multiple wide receivers fantasy-wise. So Tyler Boyd, I think, is more of the loser, but I still fully believe in T. Higgins, even though Chase, I think, is a phenomenal prospect. And Chase will become the wide receiver one for that team. Don't get it wrong. Chase, maybe not right away. I don't know how much time it's going to take, but Chase is a generational prospect. But I still like Higgins. Especially, I'm not going to defend Boyd as much, but I still like T. Higgins a lot.
What do you think, Frank?
How do you feel, Frank?
I actually do think that every single one of these receivers takes a hit in the short term, not the long term, because it's a weird scenario where I like the talent of Boyd, Higgins, and obviously Jamar Chase. I think that all three of these guys are good NFL caliber receivers. But am I going to go out and pay the wide receiver one price for T. Higgins right now?
I think right now is the lowest
T. Higgins
to
a wide
buy
receiver
him.
one.
I think right now is the lowest his price is going to be.
On keep trade cut, he's considered wide receiver 18. He's in between Allen Robinson and Jalen Waddle.
Is that you have to pay. Here's the thing. I think most competent owners are charging a higher price for T. Higgins than they are for Allen Robinson. If you were to go across all your leagues, regardless of what the trade calculators say, I think that you just generally have to give up more for T. Higgins than Allen Robinson, because T. Higgins, even with – because this is what I might be wrong, but I'm trying to gauge the consensus here. I feel like the consensus is that T. Higgins is chilling. It's Tyler Boyd that is the one that's really hit here, and that his value has now gone down because he was one of those guys that was always worth a first, but you could never get it. Now I think he's gone from, okay, well, now you're never really getting a first for him as long as he's on the Bengals. No. I don't think I'm buying any of these receivers necessarily, but I'm also not selling them, and I'm not shying away from Jamar Chase. I just still don't believe in the Bengals coaching staff. I think that that's my biggest reserve, is that I don't like what's their coach's name again? Is it Zach Taylor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like Taylor. I still don't like their offensive line. So I'm not buying these players. But I'm not panicking at the same time.
I will say once again, AJ Green, 104 targets last season.
Okay, yeah, but half of that was in the first 6 weeks of the season.
Still 104 targets.
I guess that's when Burrow was playing, but
yeah. Which is crazy. He only had 47 catches on those 104 targets.
Yikes, AJ Green.
No, I'm not saying that I don't like T. Higgins, but I think his ceiling is, you're paying for more of his ceiling price than you are for his realistic price. Like I don't think it's terribly unrealistic for T. Higgins to finish as wide receiver 15. It's just you have to pay for that. You know, it's not a great value deal necessarily. Like you're paying for how he's a young stud. Like if you're a contender, kind of like what I was saying with Allen Robinson, I think you'd have a much better time paying for an Allen Robinson as a contender than you would be paying for T. Higgins as a contender.
That's a good question. They're close. It depends how big the price difference is. Like what would be the price difference between them two?
I mean, if you were to assign a draft pick, like I think T. Higgins, the lowest you're giving him up for is like a 106 or a 107 this year. And even that, T. Higgins owners might decline. Allen Robinson, there's no shot that you are giving up a 106 or a 107 for an Allen Robinson. It's definitely more in that late first territory. I think that's the difference that won't show up on the trade calculators.
It's possible. I don't know, though. You're talking Allen Robinson has a new quarterback. I think it's close. I think if
Allen Robinson's price should not go up because of Justin Fields. That is ridiculous. That is super reactionary.
I think the
perceived price of his
same thing. Why I feel like T. Higgins' perceived value is getting lower.
And I think there's some logic to it. I don't agree as much as some people are going to say, but like the rookie QB is going to be targeting the reliable number one big bodied receiver a shit ton.
Yeah, but I don't know, where is his room for like. How is he going to get crazy better than what he's already been doing? I don't understand.
I just think the offense
he was already a wide receiver one. Like what? You expect a rookie Justin Fields that might not even start to add 500 to 1,000 yards of offense? He'd have to have a better season than Justin Herbert for that to happen.
I don't think the yards and catches go up too much. I think the touchdowns is what has the potential to go up if it's just generally a better offense that scores more.
I'm not buying that.
Yeah, whatever. We'll just move on. It's going to be one to look out for, though. Couple more just to wrap things up. This was one that I put on here. I don't know if you guys necessarily agree, but I think the Dolphins' offense, like other than Tua and Gaskins, are losing. So Mike Gesicki, Devante Parker, Preston Williams. I think the main loser out of these is Mike Gesicki, actually, because he's the one that really benefited when anyone was hurt on the team. Like when Preston Williams was hurt, he did better. When Devante Parker was hurt, he did better. Now you're bringing in Jalen Waddle, and you're also bringing in Hunter Long, who not that I necessarily think is going to take away much from Mike Gesicki. Like he's still a third-round pick. Like he tells you what the team really thinks about Gesicki. Like they're looking to bring in another tight end.
He's fool's gold.
Hunter Long?
No, Gesicki's fool's gold.
Both of them are.
If you believe in Hunter Long, you're a fool.
The fact that Gesicki could only ever produce when Devontae Smith is out, like, come on.
Devontae
and then
Parker, yeah.
I said Devontae Parker. And you even forgot one. Not only did they draft a tight end and bring in Waddle, they brought in Will Fuller.
Oh, true, yeah.
That's even another
Will
receiver.
Fuller, I think, yeah.
I don't think any of those three guys are going to be the top two in receiving options once Fuller serves his it's a 4-game suspension this year, right?
I think he only has one game this season. No?
He only has one?
Okay, well, he served 3 and then has 1 this year.
Whenever he comes back.
My thing with this offense is that Devontae Parker and Gesicki, I mean, it's priced in what has happened to them. They were never consistent to begin with. So it's not like if you owned one of these guys, you're really in the dumpster. It's like the writing was already on the wall a little bit. Probably you lost a lot more value on Gesicki than you did Devontae Parker. I guess he lost value on both of them. Now I'm thinking about it a little more, but I think that you just continued to lose that consistency. But I will say the thing is I saw on tape is that Devontae Parker and Gesicki were easily the most dynamic players in that offense. And I don't think that just because they brought in these options that they won't all of a sudden not be dynamic options. You just further cements the inconsistencies of them. The thing I will say is that this is the nail in the coffin for Preston Williams. Preston Williams he had 4 games that he played really well in, and that has carried his value ever since. He's like Donta Foreman to a certain extent. He had like a good preseason game, and he was big. and people were like, "Holy shit, this guy's legit! What a steal in the third round."
He was solid his rookie year before he got hurt.
That's still why I want to believe in
season.
Still why I want to believe in Jalen Hurts. He had like 3 touchdowns in the preseason game.
So it's like,
no, but I'm saying at least for Preston, it was regular season games.
He never finished above wide receiver 79 in PPR. He was never a hit. People just wanted him to be a hit because they drafted him, and they talked themselves into him being a hit. Don't give me that bullshit that he was a great pick or any of that. He's never added to anyone's fantasy team ever. He's a jag.
I thought before he got injured his rookie year he wasn't bad, and like he played half a season that year.
Dude, he had like the same amount of points as a Michael Pittman. And are we out here screaming that Michael Pittman had a great rookie year last year? See, that's the difference. Is and has been a jag.
All right. I think this should be our last one. We'll wrap it up after. 2 that we had underneath that I just want to get real quick mentions in: Broncos offense and Sterling Shepard. I think kind of self-explanatory. So Sterling Shepard probably odd man out at this point. Broncos offense, they ain't draft a quarterback. The last guy that I really want to talk about though was Hollywood Brown. I like Hollywood Brown. I still kind of do, but my thing is, if it was just Rashad Bateman, okay, they brought in that alpha kind of wide receiver, it's fine. But then they doubled down and got Tylan Wallace in the 4th round. So bringing in 2 wide receivers from the same draft and 4 of your top picks, like I don't know. I struggle to see how I think this offense is going to be revamped and rechanged and retooled for Lamar Jackson to throw the ball more, and there will be more targets. But now we have a lot more mouths to feed, and Willie Snead and Miles Boykin aren't your competition for targets. Now it's Rashad Bateman and Tylan Wallace. Like they're very different wide receivers. Anything you guys got to say about that one?
Hollywood, I don't know. Maybe I'm in the minority. Hold on, Lounis. I'm going here because I love Hollywood. Maybe I'm in the minority. I actually thought Hollywood Brown was a draft winner. I thought that getting Bateman was exactly what Hollywood Brown needed to be more of a threat on the field. Now it makes it tougher for defenses to kind of hang a safety over the top, because you could reliably go one-on-one with a safety like an angel safety way over the top when the threats are Willie Snead and Miles Boykin. Now it's like, okay, Rashad Bateman is a legitimate threat in one-on-one coverage. Mark Andrews is still there. You add Tylan Wallace, a good 50-50 ball winner. So I think that it helps Hollywood Brown more than it hurts.
I'm kind of in between. Because the point I was going to say is, yes, it does help in terms of drawing a lot of coverage's attention off him. It just once again comes down to can the Baltimore offense support multiple fantasy wide receivers successfully? And it would have to prove it to me. I don't think it's out of question. Like I said, it just hasn't been done yet. Because Hollywood Brown was the number 1 receiver for 2 years. Well, mostly just last year. He was like, okay. He started to come on towards the end, but no one else. I know there wasn't a lot of talent besides him, but there's still Mark Andrews is there, then Hollywood, then Tylan Wallace, and then Sammy
Watkins.
Yeah. Yeah, Sammy Watkins, and now Bateman. I feel like, I don't know, it's tough. Like I'm not completely fading Hollywood, but I don't think he's gonna have like the season next year that people thought he was gonna have, like the end of last regular season.
I think they signed Sammy Watkins to get the playbook from Andy Reid.
Maybe. Here's the thing with Hollywood. Hollywood's gonna be another one of those players that's more valuable in real life than he is in fantasy, because just being able to have that speed threat.
It was interesting. Last thing, I think we should end it here. But I was checking the Keep Trade Cuts evaluation of Hollywood Brown. It's interesting to see, like, he actually really dropped value somehow from March 17th to March 20th, which I have to imagine was free agency and getting Sammy Watkins.
Sammy Watkins isn't making me give shit. Like
that's the crazy part to me. He lost more value from them signing Sammy Watkins than them drafting 2 wide receivers, actually.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So yeah, that's kind of funny to me, actually.